Hey guys, it's Chris. From weird pieces of history to finds that few can honestly explain, join me as I reveal 9 bizarre archaeological discoveries. Number 9. Egyptian cheese. Back in 2018, a group of archaeologists went to Egypt and apparently found the oldest intact sample of cheese ever discovered. They then wrote about this discovery in an article for Analytical Chemistry. The cheese that they found was 3,200 years old, which meant that something had to preserve it for that long. The discovery itself was made when the team was exploring the tomb of Thoms, mayor of Memphis, the ancient capital of Egypt. During their exploration, they came across some broken jars, and inside the jars was a mass that would later be identified as cheese. To figure out what the mass was, they actually had to dissolve it and then run tests on what the substances that made up the mass were. The material analyzed in this study is probably the most ancient archaeological solid residue of cheese ever found to date. So that begs the question, how did the cheese survive for that long a period of time? The answer is that the type of cheese and where it was contained helped it last for 3 millennia. The cheese that ancient Egyptians had was high in moisture, and because the cheese itself was in a jar inside of a tomb, the moisture couldn't escape, thus drastically slowing down the aging and spoiling process. Number 8. Holy jar. If you go to the Museum of Ontario Archaeology, you'll find a clay jar that was intentionally made with holes in it. Not one hole just in the top, mind you, but rather holes littered throughout the jar itself. Weirdly, the jar when found was actually shattered and had to be reassembled, which led to the discovery of its unique form. Just as odd is that no one is exactly sure where the jar came from. It was found in an area near a crater in World War II, and it was in a storage room full of artifacts from Iraq via the city of Ur. But despite knowing that, it's unlike any jar ever found, and no one can place its origin or creator. The curators of the Ontario Museum even went and talked with other experts of other cultures to see if they recognized the style or form or even the origin point. But no one could give them a true answer. Everyone's stumped by it. Katie Urban, one of the researchers at the London Ontario Museum, told Live Science, "We've been sending it around to all sorts of Roman pottery experts and other pottery experts, and no one seems to be able to come up with an example." Number 7. The Jigsaw Mummies. In the Scottish Highlands in the early part of the 2000s, a dig was going on under a Bronze Age settlement that existed 3,000 years ago. As they dug deeper, they found 2 skeletons, a male and a female, and both of them were very well preserved. However, as they continued to observe the bodies, something felt very wrong with the bones. There were some that stuck out as odd, such as the woman's jawbone being bigger than it should have been, and other inconsistencies. So to figure out what was going on, they took DNA from various bones on both bodies and had them get tested. When the results came back, it was discovered that they were looking at 2 skeletons, but they were comprised of bones from 6 different people. Someone had taken the bones of these people and then placed them in specific order to resemble 2 completed skeletons, and then buried them in a ritualistic way. After finding this out, it was discovered that the reason for the bones being in such great condition is that they were put into a peat bog, which is known to preserve the human body. So it's believed that whoever did this jigsaw puzzle put the original bodies into the bog and then fished them out later, and only then did he get the bones and arrange them as such. But why someone would go through such trouble is still very much unknown. Number 6. The Claw. New Zealand, 1886. A group of archaeologists went to Mount Owen to examine and observe the underground complex of tunnels that lie beneath the mountain. Upon finding a large pile of bones, they found a claw that seemed to resemble a creature from the ancient past, the moa. This bird was flightless but incredibly tall. Some even say it was over 9 feet in height. This bird creature was said to be extinct because humans, the Maori who were the first to arrive on the island of New Zealand, saw them as a great source of meat and thus wiped them out. The interesting thing about the claw, though, was that it was very, very well preserved and even looked fresh. So how did this claw get under the mountain? Preservation of the claw is also a topic of conversation, as none of the other bones that were found in the cave were anywhere close to how good the claw was preserved. A popular theory is that the moa species is actually still alive, and that the claw is proof of this fact. But since a full-on moa hasn't been seen in hundreds of years, well, it's a mystery. Number 5. Ancient Massacre. In 2010, a group of archaeologists went to Sweden to study an ancient city from the 5th century. A Upon exploring some of the houses, they found a body on the floor of one, or more accurately, the skeleton of one. This struck the scientists as odd because it should have been buried. But as they continued to search the abandoned houses, they found even more bodies, and all of them were just scattered about the houses they were in. Looking closer at them, they realized that the bones had markings of weapons upon them. It dawned on us that this was actually a massacre, said Clara Alfsdotter, a graduate student at Linnaeus University in Sweden and an archaeologist with the Bohuslän Museum. They were basically going from door to door and killing everyone, from young children to older individuals. Further examination showed that the attack was done quietly, like an ambush or sneak attack to not cause mass panic. One even likened the attack to something out of Game of Thrones. 200 to 250 people were believed to be in the village, so many more bodies have yet to be found. Only around 26 were discovered in the initial search. Number 4. Range Creek Treasures. The Wilcox family held a secret for quite some time at their ranch in Utah. Called Range Creek, the family ranch held a large collection of tools, paintings, houses, and more from an ancient tribe of Native Americans called the Fremont. They lived in the area around 1,000 years ago. When the family came into the land, they found everything and worked very hard to try and keep it a secret. And they did so until one of the remaining family members sold it to the Utah Museum of Natural History. The biggest mystery of the items found at the ranch were that of the wall paintings made by the Fremont, because while there are many identifiable items and pictures to take note of, some of them are beyond what should be in the area, including large figures that aren't shaped like humans. Were these symbols of their gods, or of creatures they claim to have seen in their lands at one time? And why put them with other animals like goats in the pictures? What were they trying to convey? If you have any ideas, leave them down in the comments below. Number 3. The Cockno Stone. Found in 2016, the Cockno Stone was discovered in Glasgow, Scotland, and it was something that was immediately deemed unusual, mainly because it was very large. As it wasn't just a stone, it was a stone slab, one that was 43 feet by 26 feet. Also, it was 5,000 years old, which puts it well before Scotland was even a notion of a nation. Once observed, archaeologists found even more confusing things on it in the form of scribbles and designs and patterns. While not unusual as a whole, as this was common for ancient people, it was noted that these patterns have shown up in other places of the world, which would mean a very weird coincidence, or the same people made these patterns in multiple parts of the world. But what the scribbles and patterns mean, though, is currently unknown. Number 2. Crystal Skulls. The legend and infamy of the crystal skull is one that has permeated the world and pop culture at large. To be clear, there isn't a single crystal skull. There are actually many that aren't modern reproductions, that is, and some of them are in museums all over the world. But there are a certain set of them that have been discovered so far that are hand-carved from rock crystal like quartz and were designed to be a perfect replica of the human skull. The twist, though, is that there are many who believe that they were made by ancients, whether it be the Mayans, Incans, Mesopotamians, and more, while others feel that they were made in the 19th century when desire to have something from the ancient days was high. Those that believe the crystal skulls are ancient believe that they have mystical powers. We believe the crystal skulls are a form of computer, which are able to record energy and vibration that occur around them, writes Joshua Shapiro in his book about the artifacts. The skull will pictorially replay all events or images of the people who have come into contact with them. They contain the history of our world. However, many of the original crystal skulls are known as fakes, or are proven to be more modern creations than ancient treasures. Despite this proof, people still believe in them, and their mythology has become a part of pop culture on many levels. Number 1. Nazca Lines. In Peru are a series of shapes and formations made into the ground by an ancient tribe called the Nazca. So it's appropriate that these formations are called the Nazca Lines. These geoglyphs are found within one of the high deserts of Peru, and their shape, scale, and detail have left many both impressed, horrified, and a little confused. At ground level, you won't see anything, but when you go up into the sky, the true form of the Nazca Lines emerge. You'll see basic shapes, and then you'll also see birds and other animals. And then you might even see some stylized shapes that resemble humans. The two biggest questions when it comes to the Nazca Lines are why and how. While it's fair to say it's not impossible to make such lines as these, to do it in the ancient times, because their estimated creation is put between 1 and 700 AD, well, it would have undoubtedly been a challenge. But the Nazca did it, and they continued to do it, and with extreme precision too. There's one line that actually goes 9 miles in length, and it's perfectly straight. A feat that's even more impressive when you hear that these were done by hand. There have been many theories as to why the Nazca Lines were created. Some say they're symbols of their gods. Some say they're prisons for monsters, or signals to beings in the sky. But the truth here is that no one knows for sure what the truth is. Thanks for watching. How bizarre were these archaeological discoveries in your mind? Which one stood out the most for you? Do you know of others that could have been on this list? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on World List.